Hello, Richard. Could you state your whole name for us?
Richard Nahum Goldberger, Goldberger.
Can you tell us what you do for a profession?
I'm a journalist. I'm managing editor, FNA Federated News. This agency was founded in 1980, March to be exact. I am also a consultant, as long as there's no conflict with my media, my journalistic activities. I consult on a wide range of topics, and I'm also a creative director, designer.
Well, it's nice to get to interview you. Let's get right down to the nuts and bolts of this here interview, and that is we've had marches going on, and just lately we had a disturbance that was in Dallas where cops were murdered. Do you have any solutions for today's events and how we can get together?
Well, I believe I have a concept called National Days of Redress, based on the bonus marches of the 1930s, where veterans who were promised a congressional bonus didn't get it. They had an encampment in Washington, D.C., and to get their point across, Congress finally listened. They got their bonuses. What I'm proposing is an encampment in Washington of the people that is allowed in the Constitution, National Days of Redress. Constitution says people can't petition their government for redress. The petition is a document called a contract with common sense. It's a physical document, and it basically has specific line items of what the people would want. If you'd like to give me some would you like me to give you some examples?
I would like some examples, but first, could you reiterate the regression? This is my first time hearing Congress of regression. Could you just kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Contract with common sense. It's the national. The program is called. The organization is called National Days of Redress. REDRESS. It's in our Constitution that the people may petition our government for redress. People have problems, their issues. It's a peaceful way to address our government, so our government listens to the people. Redress, REDRESS. The document, the petition, is a physical document, pieces of paper, called a contract with common sense. We are a nation that was founded of common sense. Without common sense, you have nonsense. And it's impossible to have any kind of a governmental structure governed by nonsense, as you do not have the consent of the governed. And it doesn't work, and this is what's happening now. It's taken quite a few years. Probably started with the death of John Kennedy. It probably has gone on way before then. And we have this tremendous dichotomy in the country between the haves and the have-nots, the right wing, the left wing, the blues, the police, the non-police, the blacks, the minorities versus minorities. You have 21, 31 deaths every weekend in the projects in Chicago. This is a war. This is crazy.
To add to that, you were talking last time we spoke, actually, on hope.
Yes.
And
I'll be happy to.
On that?
We need to inject into the body politics of this country a IV of hope, a Xanax of hope. Hope. Either we have a government run by hope, or we have a government that attempts to run in a hopeless way, which ends up in a revolution. Hope can be determined by listening to the people and achieving their hopes, dreams, and aspirations as citizens of this wonderful country, allowing the people to self-manifest, as Maslow says, to be self-centric and to unify their ideas into a greater good. This is the American spirit, is to shine, to grow, to blossom.
So if I hear you right, are you saying that Congress regression?
No, I'm saying
Congress
Congress National Day of Redress. Redress. R-E-D-R-E-S-S.
Redress.
Redress is the right to be heard by Congress. The Constitution says that people can petition their government, which is basically Congress and the executive. The judiciary is you petition the judiciary by going to court, but you can petition the Congress, the Senate and the House, and the executive by a petition. I call the petition a contract with common sense, and the people say this is what we want. And it took me a couple of New York seconds. I have at least 17 line items, key phrase, and there are a lot more, and there would be drafting sessions for this specific document, because I'm not the only one in the country who has some laser specific ideas. I want to hear from a lot of people, but they have to be laser specific, and they have to be doable. Without doability, you can't do it. I mean, you can't put square pegs in triangle holes. You can't put round pegs in square holes. It ruins it. That's what we've been trying to do here, and it's not working. The country needs the body politic, let's say this, is constipated. It needs an enema of hope. Think about that, an enema of hope to deconstipate, to get the shit out, and to start fresh. And that needs to be done. It's a catharsis of the body politic. It's a cleansing of the body it's a cleansing of the American body politic. The body is sick right now, and it's getting sicker and sicker. And what's going to happen is we're going to have a revolution. A revolution that will be like what happened in Chicago, and it's going to spread from cities. It's going to be violent. People are going to get hurt. People are going to die. You'll have billions of dollars in property that's going to be lost.
So would you call your idea right here a positive revolution?
Oh, this is the most positive revolution. Bernie talked about a revolution, but this is laser specific. This is based on specific points that are doable.
That is legal. And
legal, there's no question about it. That's legal, but not only is it legal, it's doable, and it brings hope to the people. It's a movement that brings real hope, real change.
Could you talk about our founding fathers and why they put that in our in the bill?
Redress to petition our government, because they realized how people are. They realized that governments fail throughout history. Governments and civilizations have failed, and there's a commonality of why, because the people in power get intoxicated with the power, and certain people are better than others, and there's oppression. When you start oppressing people, either economically, physically, socially, you lead up to a revolution. Oppression, we don't want oppression. We don't want oppressed people. We want people to self-manifest. We have a great experiment here, the United States of America. It's a republic, it's a democratic republic. But right now we have the best representatives in the House and the U.S. Senate and the executive that can be bought. And this is the problem. We need to demonetize, we need to demonetize federal elective politics. No, none, nada. Private money can go to any federal election, because private money corrupts. You buy. The more money you give a politician running for this House or Senate or the president, the president's going to follow that money. He's going to go, hey, the money's talking. The money's buying my interest. It's buying access. $1 million, but whereas there's someone who has nothing, I don't care about them.
Could you speak also on that? Could you speak also on the citizens of America trying to make change through hate versus through hope, through this policy?
Well, hate will lead. Hate begets hate. It becomes a disaster. Hate allows violence, discrimination, disaster,
You're talking
oppression.
about martial law, and
you'll have martial law, and hate will lead to a dictatorship. Dictators rise because of hate. Hitler rose to Germany on some good aspects, but basically he hated. It was the Jews who were the problem. It was the other minorities. and let's blame the Jews for our problem. So people hate the Jews, and that's not good. Any government has to be inclusive of all its citizens. Inclusive. Anything exclusive tends to discriminate, and you start the politics of hate, and it goes into you'll end up in martial law with a dictator, and you're going to have then that dictator needs to be overthrown, and then you have a commonality. You have a revolution. Is what happens. There's a reason why these things happen, and there's also a reason that human beings are human beings and have their foibles, have their faults, and we have to recognize that and work with it. As I say, power corrupts. As Jefferson said, absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. Power is like corrupts. The corruption is like a rust. It's like oxidation on copper or rusting on steel. It rusts. It oxidizes. That's normal. So the more power you have, you need to be like Gandhi and kind of let other people sit in the captain's chair, and you have the power, and you just kind of ride in the back of the bus, or not ride on the bus whatsoever, walk.
How important is it for us to get to the status where everyone's equal?
Well, equality is an interesting point, and that equality is based on the ability for a person to be appreciated and listened to without having to contribute money, as being a member of a class group that is a citizen of the United States. Or even if they're not a citizen, they're in the United States, they have standing. I mean, obviously, if you're a citizen, you have standing. But if you're not a citizen, but you're in the United States, like an illegal, you still have standing because you're in the United States. And your standing should be appreciated, really so. And that's really important. That's very, very important to be appreciated. And it's a standing to be listened to be part of this wonderful country, which is an organic experiment, which is continuing to self-manifest, should be continuing, and that give people a right to be part of their government. We the people. It's not we the government. We are the people. This is people power in its most wonderful form, setting up this movement called a National Day of Redress. And you have the encampment in Washington, which is the end result. You start immediately with the pots and pans marches from point A to point B in one city. Let's say in Salt Lake, going from the federal building to the state capitol, then back to the federal building. Take about an hour every night, Monday through Friday. People say, "What is this about?" It's to awake people to the need for this movement called a National Day of Redress. We have a team working on the encampment, which is going to go to Washington, and these people will stay there. They'll stay there until they get redress. And we have the time elements are the immediate now to 2 weeks, 2 weeks to 2 months, short term, intermediate 2 months to 6 months, and then long term is 6 months. And there can be working groups set up. There can be a number of things done, bill drafting sessions to work on these points that are addressed in the contract with common sense. Some might call it a manifesto. I prefer the term. It's a document. It's an organic document of hope. It's a document bringing hope. So the people have a blueprint. It's a protocol, a prototype, have a blueprint for change in a very positive way.
Could you explain what redress means?
Redress is very simple. REDRESS. It means that our government must listen to our people. This is why it was in the Constitution. When our people have a grievance, when our people are not happy with what the government is doing, our people petition our government to be heard. And our government must listen, because our government is of the people, by the people, for the people. It's not of the government, by the government, for the government.
Yeah.
That's really, really important.
So working on this day, we're going to build a day called National Day of Redress.
National Day /S, because people are going to go to Washington by the millions, I hope, and they're going to have their rally. They're going to be very neat, like when Glenn Beck. They're going to be very organized. They're going to make it cleaner than it was before.
We're going to have a contract.
And they're going to stay there. They're going to encamp there. Now, the federal government's not going to be too happy about this, and the president's going to declare a national emergency, but they're not going to arrest 1 million people. They're not going to take the hoses, and they're not going to do that. That would be the most foolish thing our government can do. Mm-hmm. They're not going to bring in the troops to roust these people, because then you'll have a revolution right there. Some people will die, some people will be born. But what we want to do is petition our government, the executive, the president, have the president come down, meet with the people, have the vice president come down, have members of Congress come down and meet with the people. They'll get copies of the documents, and we're going to hold working sessions on each of the planks within the contract with common sense. Some of them are very doable in the immediate. Some of them will take time, like the demonetization. We may need a constitutional convention. That's not a bad idea, because President Roosevelt in 1942 wanted to do a second, or was it 40, before he died, 44, a second Bill of Rights. Died in 45. He wanted to do, he felt the country needed a second Bill of Rights. So maybe we need a constitutional convention to call a constitutional convention to have. This would be one of the items for debate. There's nothing wrong with a constitutional convention. It's allowing the people redress in a non-violent way. If you suppress people, you're going to get a revolution. There can be peaceful revolutions. Revolutions don't mean that they have to be violent.
Right. You spoke last night, and this caught my attention when you said unhappy people don't riot. Well, you said happy people don't cause trouble.
I said happy campers. If you're a happy camper and happy people, you don't take up arms. You don't need to be angry. Happy people are content, and they want to self-manifest and spread their self-manifestation to others to make the country work.
So our objective is to get everybody there, every citizen in America
We want
there.
people to be content. We want to bring hope to the hopeless. And there are a lot of hopeless in this country. There are a lot of people who, I'll talk about the domestic refugees, who are considered worse than garbage. They're treated worse than garbage. The shelters you consider human garbage dumps. The domestic refugees referred to as the homeless, referred to as human garbage. Human beings are not garbage, and these are the first people, by the way, as disgusting as some of them are. They smell, they scream, they have terrible habits, a lot of mentally ill. These are the first persons Jesus would go to. But the missionaries avoid these like the plague because they're not nice. They're not nice. But these are exactly the first people Jesus would go to, because this is what Christianity is about. You'd go to the worst of the worst. This is what Mother Teresa did. But you'd bring hope. You just wouldn't. You want these people to self-manifest. And there's no reason why they can't. Some are sick mentally, and they need to be treated in a very nice way, and maybe they can get better, maybe they can't. I don't know. Some are physically ill. Some are both physically and mentally ill. A large part of our domestic refugees are ready, willing, and able to work, and we need to do that. A large number are federal, under the federal wards. They're veterans who are homeless, domestic refugees who are veterans, displaced Americans who are islanders or from our trust territories. These are totally federal issues, and also our Native Americans. The federal government must take responsibility for its federal wards. That's veterans, any veteran, any Native American who's in trouble, and any islander or members of a trust territory from Puerto Rico. You get that.
Yeah, absolutely, Richard. I have a couple more questions here. How important is it for police officers to start screening officers?
I think the point here is that when a police officer applies for a job, there needs to be a very careful vetting. I'll give you an example. We have a lot of police wannabes who impersonate police officers, and they get caught, they get arrested. These people should, number one, never be allowed to have any kind of a gun. Never be allowed. They should be barred from any kind of a gun, and barred because of psychological reasons from being a law enforcement officer, a security officer, anything that involves the public, guarding the public trust. These people are psychologically sick. They're dangerous. We don't want to have set up poisonous snakes to guard to babysit our children, obviously, or dangerous animals. These people are very dangerous. They're poison people because of their pathology. And we also have people who join the police force who have embedded flaws, who maybe are not impersonators, but they want control. They're control freaks. There's a small percentage, and they get into the force and they cause a lot of trouble. Like the guy who shot this in Minnesota. This guy was reaching for his ID. His girlfriend said he does have a gun, and the guy shot him when he was reaching. I mean, this is crazy, you know. It's homicide, and this makes. And the governor said this guy, because the guy was black, it's probable cause to take him. The governor, who's white of Minnesota. I mean, this kind of behavior will lead to this hatred, and will lead to a race war. We lead to a war on police. And it started yesterday with 5 policemen being assassinated in Dallas. And this is terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, the police need to come up with a good PR, and they need to know that they're in a major position of public trust to keep the peace, and they have to be super careful in how they arrest people when it comes to deadly force, when and when not to use it. Tasing is one thing, but you don't, someone who's lying down at point blank range, shoot him. For what, having a broken taillight, that's his crime? Because he's black and had a broken taillight, or because he's black, or because they're Hispanic. That's you're guilty because of your race and ethnicity. That's a sure example to have a violent revolution. And people hate the police, and it's understandable, although terribly regrettable, why there are people who probably cheered after these 5 officers. And they're probably decent, very decent people who were gunned down, shot in the head or whatever. I mean, just it's hideous that we've come to assassination of police officers.
Absolutely, Richard. In closing, I'm going to go to the flip side, because in a lot of the neighborhoods we're having issues with kids killing kids in their own neighborhoods, terrorizing the neighborhoods in Chicago and all inner cities. Do you have any ideas on how or resolutions to fix the violence in the inner cities?
Yes, I do. Number one, we have to identify these kids who are members of gangs. They're domestic terrorists. They're as bad as ISIS, as bad as the Taliban, as bad as Al-Qaeda. They're non-Muslim, they're non-Arab, they're white, they're black, basically black, Hispanic. They have these gangs, which are to some degree criminal enterprises. We have to use the RICO laws, but we also have to impose, these are terrorists now, very limited martial law in these areas where these shootings, you can document where these shootings in a certain geographic micro area occur. These areas need to be under the emergency powers of the president declared, and the governor declared special areas, and martial law must be imposed. And that's going to stop. We are not going to allow this kind of behavior to run amok in our cities. And these are kids, but they're kids armed with terrible weapons, and we can't have this random killing because your allegiance is to a color, a blue or red, Crips or Blood, and your allegiance to a special name, the South Side Bloods or the South Side Crips or the Lords, whatever, the Lords of Vengeance, whatever the name is. That's a politics based on nomenclature and color, and it's very violent. MS-13, these people aren't even from the United States, and they come up here and they think they can do whatever they want to do. They have no standing, and it's called license. People do not have license to do what they want in this country. We, under our Constitution, have this word called liberty, which you can enjoy the good life, but there's certain things you can't do. You can't go out and sweep the streets with a semi-automatic weapon. You can't go out and take a crap wherever you want. You can't, set up encampments in public streets and say, this is where I live, and block access to. There has to be a balance between the people and society, the government. Society is made up of people. And there has to be a balance, and there has to be the full faith and credit of the United States, of our government, by the people. People have to have faith, have to have confidence in our government. If you have a none of the above on the ballot, which should be a plank in the contract with common sense, none of the above, that means the slate is, none of the above wins, new slate. Because right now, none of the above would win in the Clinton-Trump election. If none of the above can be, none of the above. We don't want any of them. So they have to have a new slate. People want decent, honest politicians who are represented. These are public servants. I don't like the term politician. They want decent, honest public servants who represent them, who are not bought and paid for by someone who has money, whether it's a corporation or an individual, PAC or whatever. I mean, Citizens United says, hey, go out and buy the best you can. Money is highly corrupting, and we need to take money out of federal elected politics. States, that's up to the states. But when it comes to the federal government, Congress, the Senate, and the executive, no private money, not a penny. You're given so much money, you can blow it on prostitution, blow it up your nose. Or you can run a campaign based on issues, and that's it. And if you break the rules, you're going to be disavowed from office, from running, and you probably will face some jail time. There'll be very strict penalties. Guess what? We're going to have the best politicians no money can buy. We're going to have politicians who are working on the issues, who really care about the people.
And have common sense.
Without common sense, you have nonsense. And we've had a nonsensical political system for years and years. And it's like a volcano. It's building up. It's going to blow. You're going to have a tsunami of hate. That's not the way to run a government. No government can last that way. None. It's impossible. Throughout history. Go back as far as you want.
Right.
That
Very well said, Richard.
Governments must be of the people, by the people, and for the people. This was the American experiment. It's stated that way. The people, not the politicians. The people. The people are sovereign.
Right.
And we have to respect the needs of the sovereign.
So in summing everything up, we are going to have a congressional redress, which is the most peaceful way to bring about change.
It's not just congressional. It's a national day of redress. We're going to redress the Congress, the Senate, and the House, and the executive. The people are going to. There are three different branches of government, but right now we're concerned about the executive, the presidency, and the Congress, which is the U.S. Senate and U.S. House. The judiciary, you redress the judiciary through the court system. You go to court. That's how you redress your grievances in court. It's that simple. But here we're redressing our grievances directly, as stated in the Constitution, to the executive, to the Congress. Congress, they must listen to you, and they will listen, because we're going to have millions of, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people in Washington camped out. It will be a giant encampment, and people will stay. And if the government doesn't like it, too effing bad. I mean, to be honest with you. Because the government, the people are sovereign, the people create the government. The government is supposed to be the servant of the people to ensure that certain enumerated rights of safety, of well-being, and of hope. The government needs to generate hope for the people, and the people, and not suppress the people. If a government acts in a suppressive way, you're going to have a revolution. I don't care. You have to understand that.
And to your knowledge, Richard, to your knowledge, is this the most effective way to get change to come about?
It's the only way. It is the only way. I wish there were other ways. I wish someone else had a better idea. This is the only common sense way to achieve the objectives of massive change. That is laser specific. It's just not change. People say we want justice. Justice by objectives. Well, let's be objective. This is called government by objectives. a contract with common sense. We, the people, petition our government for the following. I mean, I'll give you some examples. We need a national wellness, we need to focus on health, a national wellness healthcare program. We have a national sickness confusion program that's very expensive, and it's getting worse. We want to make people well, preventive medicine. We need to have, as I say, a national registry of people who are convicted of impersonating police officers. We need national standards of vetting for police officers through the Department of Justice and through the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare to come up with more psychological testing to make sure that closet sociopaths or psychopaths and non-closet psychopaths and sociopaths never can wear a badge, because this cop who shot this kid, there's something wrong. There's something at point blank range, and who shot the other kid in Baton Rouge. Normal policing, that's not normal standard protocol. I mean, obviously, someone has a gun, and if they don't have a permit or something, there are ways to do it. If he points the gun at you, if it's a clear and present danger, then you'd be Dirty Harry. I mean, Dirty Harry is great, but this is not Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry wouldn't do these things.
Nope.
Dirty Harry had a standard of behavior. I mean, that's, Clint Eastwood, who Dirty Harry was played by, had some rules. He had ethics, and,
morals.
But I think this is really important.
Okay.
There are ways to do policing that respect the badge, respect the person, and also respect the perpetrator. And depending, as I say, if the perpetrator is a clear and present danger, like he points a weapon at you, and it's you or him, you take him out. There's no question about it. The best way you can, because it's you or him.
Right.
And that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
That happens more than it should. But there needs to be a common sense approach to policing. Common sense. Without common sense, you have nonsense.
I need to know what makes you come up with resolutions for America and across the world.
Well, I live here. I mean, I'm a citizen, and I can't stand what I see. It's very upsetting to me. And my slogan is to make a difference, be the difference. I can be a difference. I can make a difference. I have that ability. Some people have great musical ability. I wish I had. I don't. I have certain inherited talents. Maybe they come from outer space. Who knows where they come from? And they're gifts. And I put them to use to the best I can. To make a difference, be the difference. I think that's really important. We all have different gifts. And these are the gifts I have. And I know I can make a difference. But the objective is to have people listen to me and be part of this National Days of Redress. This is a movement that there are hundreds and hundreds of movements that want to make a difference. And most of them fail. Some of them have a few good points, but most of them fail. It's a lot of rhetoric, a lot of money is raised, and they keep banging on the same old drum. They put together worn-out platitudes, and guess what? Nothing happens. It gets worse. Yeah, something does happen. The situation gets worse. So if you're going to want to make a difference, you have to do it in such a way as to be highly logical, highly doable. If it's not doable and highly accepted by a vast spectrum of the body politic, that means the extreme right, the extreme left, and all in between. And because there's a commonality of all these people. They're human beings, and they're Americans, whether they like it or not. And there are ways to address our problems. Otherwise, if we don't address our problems will address us, and indeed, they're addressing us as these hideous assassinations that happened in Dallas, these hideous police attacks that happened in Minnesota, and have happened in Louisiana. I mean, we cannot continue, and unfortunately they're going to continue because there's still people who are in authority, who are psychopathic or sociopathic, and whose training is not up to snuff, and who reach for the gun before reaching for the brain. I mean, you got to think. You got to say, this is, as I say, Dirty Harry didn't always reach for the gun. That was one of the last things he did. and we need to use dirty Harry as a model. I mean, he did terrible things when he had to, but that was his last resort. He didn't want to do that.
Right.
And, at times you have to as a law enforcement officer. But that's not the first thing you do. The last thing you do, unless it's a clear and present danger, that someone is, coming to you with a deadly weapon, and if you don't take them down, they're going to take you down. I mean, obviously, you have to protect yourself. That's number one. That's common sense. This is in our organic architecture. What more can I say? Common sense. I'm a common sense grad. People say Democrat, Republican, fanatic, liberal, whatever. I'm a common sense grad. Period. I vote for common sense. I demand common sense. Because that's the only way to do it. And this is a movement, a National Day of Redress. It's a common sense-cratic movement. Common sense-cratic movement. That's a really important term. And I rest my case.
Richard, could you tell us your name again and what you do in closing?
My name again is Richard Nahum, N-A-H-U-M, Goldberger, Goldberger. I am managing editor, FNA Federated News, FNAnews.com. I also do design. I'm a designer. I also do consulting, part of my consulting, as long as there's no conflict with my being in the media. If I have a conflict, I'll recuse myself from the media or from consulting. I won't. I have ethics. And my objective is to be honest in my reporting and to tell the truth. I mean, if the story is not true, I won't. If I can't prove it's true, I won't touch it. I can't research it. But if I say something that has to be true, and I'm a common sense crat politically. I mean, this is the only way to fly. This is the ultimate role of a citizen, is to take a position, to be a participant in our government, in our society, to try to make life different, life better, to make a difference, be the difference. Service to others. I'll give you one more promo. Service to others equals service to self.
Service to others equals service to self. Thanks, Richard, for letting me get that feedback. And I'm Andre Davis, reporter with FNA News. Thanks for listening and watching.